Crocodiles are famous for their ability to survive. They've cornered the market on semi-aquatic apex predator niches for over 200 million years now and show no signs of letting other animals get close to replacing them. However, the idea that crocodiles are living fossils that haven't changed since the first dinosaurs appeared is incredibly incorrect, and in the coolest way possible. Yes, the group Pseudosuchia has been around since the early Triassic period, but their ability to change and adapt to changing environments is what made them so successful, and allowed them to survive mass extinction after mass extinction. In this video, we'll cover the various forms that Pseudosuchia, the group that includes true crocodiles and their closest relatives, took on in order to thrive across hundreds of millions of years of competition and disaster. From elephant-sized, river-dwelling ambush predators to heavily armored terrestrial herbivores, Pseudosuchians developed some of the most extreme vertebrate fauna to exist on planet Earth. Let's start with the niche we all know and love, semi-aquatic ambush predators. Phytosaurs, which the most recent studies establish as part of Pseudosuchia, were the first members of the group to employ this strategy, and superficially looked extremely similar to the ones we've still got around today. Armored backs, thick paddle tails, long jaws with conical teeth, the works. Many of them had saber-like gripping teeth at the very front of their jaws, ideal for grasping onto large, slippery prey. They were formidable predators, with the largest, Smilosuchus, at up to 7 meters long and over a metric ton. Of course, the Triassic didn't have a monopoly on this build. Even after the end Triassic extinction wiped out the non-crocodilomorph Pseudosuchians, the survivors kept trucking on, potentially thanks to their lower metabolisms, allowing them to go for longer periods without eating during a volcanic winter. Amphicotylus was a goniophyllid crocodilomorph from the Morrison Formation of late Jurassic North America, and you could be forgiven for mistaking it for a regular alligator at first glance. It lived in rivers and lakes of this sauropod and allosaur-dominated environment, eating a mixture of fish and large vertebrates. The Cretaceous is not to be outdone. Mahajongasuchus lived in Cretaceous Madagascar, and while its long limbs would seem to imply a chiefly terrestrial lifestyle, the flat, broad shape of its skull and the higher position of its eyes and nostrils are semi-aquatic ambush predator adaptations. Given this mixture of traits, it would have been fairly capable of chasing prey that tried to escape its ambushes. The Cretaceous period also hosted some of the largest Pseudosuchians to ever exist. Sarcosuchus imperator is one of these, dubbed Super Croc by paleontologist Paul Sereno. It lived in northern Africa in the early Cretaceous period, and while it has a large bulla on the tip of its snout that resembles those of gharials, Sarcosuchus had a skull that was far wider and more massive proportionally, indicating a diet of large prey. Whether that was giant fish or drinking dinosaurs is unknown, although I'm inclined to expect it preyed on both. If you're 9 meters long and 3 to 4 tons, most other animals will be on the menu. Dinosuchus is the other megacroc of the Mesozoic, with larger specimens in the 5 to 6 ton and 10 meter range. That's bull African bush elephant territory. It terrorized North America in the later stages of the Cretaceous, likely feasting on hadrosaurs, ceratopsians, and even small tyrannosaurs. Its bite could pulverize bone, with some estimates putting giant specimens' bites at over 100,000 newtons. The legacy of gigantic river-dwelling Pseudosuchians didn't end with the Cretaceous Paleogene extinction. Purosaurus brasiliensis was a giant caiman, by giant I mean comparable to Dinosuchus, that ruled the Miocene of South America, chomping on huge capybara relatives like Josepha artigacia and overgrown turtles like Stupendemus. Their broad skull says it all, as in we don't have any postcranial remains, so any reconstructions of the animal's proportions are chiefly guesswork. It would be remiss of me not to mention the brand new Crocodilus lucivinator, which likely hunted Australopithecines about 3 million years ago. It's cool. Voe robustus keeps the trend going later in the Cenozoic. This native of Pleistocene Madagascar is famous for having extended squamosal horns that gave it a devilish appearance. It coexisted and competed with Nile crocodiles, and only went extinct after humans wiped out its main food sources on the island. Semi-aquatic piscivores are perhaps the next most famous type of Pseudosuchian. Some more gracile phytosaurs like Rudiodon appear to have adopted this lifestyle, with thinner snouts and more needle-shaped teeth than their bulky brethren. Gharials have similar builds despite their large size and are still alive. The other way to focus on eating large amounts of small fish is to go down the path that Stomatosuchus took in late Cretaceous Egypt. This pelican croc had an enormous surfboard-like skull with hordes of tiny teeth, suggested to be used like a throat pouch to gulp up dozens of fish at a time. It was enormous as well, potentially 9 to 10 meters long and several tons. The Jurassic period sees the semi-aquatic crocodilomorphs go all in on the water, becoming fully marine predators across multiple lineages. Metriorhynchids are the more famous of the two marine crocodilomorph groups. They exchange their terrestrial locomotory capabilities for fins, smooth, scootless skin, tail flukes to increase their speed underwater, and the ability to give live birth. The group survived for tens of millions of years, successfully surviving as open-water, dolphin-sized predators alongside the advent of giants like pliosaurs and mosasaurs. Some metriorhynchids were formidable themselves when it came to body size, like the 7-meter, 1-ton Plesiosuchus. Dacosaurus, while smaller at about 5 meters, had an exceptionally tall skull, indicating a powerful bite designed to harm large prey. Teleosauroids are the other major marine clade. They weren't as adapted for open water, with traditional limbs instead of fins, but had long, thin, hydrodynamic body shapes, and are believed to have mostly been coastal specialists, with some retaining semi-terrestrial habits. Their skulls were long and thin, indicating a fish-focused diet. Some of their genus names are genuinely unhinged, thanks to Atronist and Zonate for suggesting the teleosaurs discussed here. Proexochokphalos and Clovser Demeridar. I think I might have just summoned Dormammu by saying those unfathomable words out loud. Oh well, Tyrant Prime can handle them. Potential pets is a category we can't ignore, mainly because it allows us to mention the Gracillosuchids, tiny Triassic Suchians about the size of a house cat to medium dog. They'd love to eat insects and small vertebrates, and I believe in my heart of hearts that we could learn to keep them as pets if they were still around. Think Tegu, but the crocodile version. Sure, a Tyhangasuchus could bite off your hand pretty easily, but what if he really liked hanging out with you? That brings us to our next category, large terrestrial predators. Poposauroids are a group of Triassic Pseudosuchians that convergently resemble theropods and early sauropodomorphs, with new research indicating that many of these animals began life as quadrupeds and gradually outgrew their forelimbs, becoming bipedal as adults. They include the Shuvosaurids, which were actually fast-footed herbivores that may have had beaks, although we're focusing on the carnivores for this section. Some carnivorous Poposauroids retained a quadrupedal state throughout their lives, like the sail-backed Arizonosaurus and Tenosauruscus. True Poposaurids, a family that included the group's namesake Poposaurus, were more like dragons, with elongate bipedal bodies, powerful jaws, and long arms, reaching sizes comparable to modern lions. Loricotans included by far the biggest carnivorous terrestrial Pseudosuchians and take the idea of prehistoric dragons even further than the Poposaurids did. Some, like the famous Postosuchus, were the Triassic equivalent of tyrannosaurs. Their erect stance, long legs, heavy armor, and boxy powerful skulls made them menaces, especially since they could reach 7 meters long and 1,000 kilograms. Their serrated or zyphodont teeth were perfect for slicing flesh, and bipedal loricotans weren't exactly slow animals either. The quadrupedal varieties remained the biggest, however. Saurosuchus was a 6-meter bruiser, with Physolasuchus taking the crown as an 8-meter-long, 2.6-ton apex predator that likely hunted sauropodomorphs. We're talking the biggest non-dinosaur land predator in the fossil record. Prestosuchus is also enormous, and its formation has some indeterminate fragmentary specimens that approach Physolasuchus size. Triassic South America was not a place you'd want to visit if you valued your life. I have to mention Smock, because there's a chance that it's some kind of Pseudosuchian. There's also a chance it's an early theropod. We probably won't ever know unless we find a totally complete specimen. Sebecids are a group of terrestrial crocodilomorphs that showed up as rabbit-sized predators in the very early Cenozoic, and then dominated entire continents for most of the era. From the 50 to 100 kilogram Argentinian Sebecus to the black bear-sized Lankstonia, these fast, long-legged critters hunted toxodonts and other large mammals across Europe and South America for tens of millions of years. Brettosuchus was another bear-sized example with a short, deep skull, while some even larger Sebecids like Dentaneosuchus from France had longer skulls that were still optimized for taking down big terrestrial prey. Berinasuchus is currently believed to be the largest Sebecid. Even with conservative head-body proportions, it's still a 5.5 meter, 1,000 kilogram super predator, making it one of the biggest land carnivores of the entire Cenozoic. We still aren't done with this niche if you can believe it. Notosuchians are a group that lasted from the Middle Jurassic all the way to the Pliocene, a mind-numbing run of 160 million years. They were incredibly diverse as well, repping the big scary jaws format with the late Cretaceous Barosuchus and Cotensuchus, along with the slightly smaller but likely faster Stratiotosuchus. Ararippasuchus was a cat-sized vertebrate and insect hunter that lived in South America for a large portion of the Cretaceous. Notosuchians also bring us to some other major forms of Pseudosuchian success. I am, of course, referring to herbivorous varieties. Cymosuchus from Cretaceous Madagascar is one of the flagship taxa for this build. The size of a cat, this heavily armored herbivore had long limbs and claws that could have been used for digging up edible plant matter, which its peg-like teeth could handle without issue. Armadillosuchus adds to the Notosuchian resume as a heavily armored small omnivore. Iharkutosuchus wasn't a Notosuchian, but it was an herbivorous and frugivorous crocodilian less than a meter long. Its multiple forms of teeth and lower jaw articulation would allow it to chew in a method similar to mammals, helping it process tough plants and fibrous fruit. How flipping amazing is that? Silosuchus was a poposaur, likely an herbivorous shuvasaurid. It was the size of a large dog. until a referred specimen was discovered that scales to a 2+ ton animal, making Psilosuchus the largest non-dinosaur biped in the history of planet Earth. Random, but incredibly cool. Edosaurs, however, remain the typically referred to herbivorous Pseudosuchian group. They were built like the much later ankylosaurs, specifically the clubless nodosaurs, with their quadrupedal stance, banded armor, spiky defenses, and herbivorous diet. They were highly successful, known from all over the world and surviving for 30 million years. It took a global volcanic winter to take these guys out, and they thrived up to that point, reaching the size of cows. Not even shelled invertebrates are safe from the depredations of crocodile specialization. Behold, Mycosuchus inexpectatus, which lived in New Caledonia and Vanuatu until as recently as 3,000 years ago. The idea that I was only 3 millennia away from potentially seeing this little cutie in person is devastating. This species was originally suggested to be a tree climber, but further anatomical examination has not borne out the idea that they had arboreal adaptations after all. Rather, they would have focused on shelled animals, inferred from the round, bulbous shape of their teeth that were better suited to crushing than slicing. Now we'll discuss some of the physiological factors that contributed to the success of Pseudosuchia as a whole, emphasizing modern crocodilomorphs and backscaling when we can. Let's start with metabolism. Hot or cold? Yes or no? In or out? Metabolism, or the rate at and methods through which animals produce and consume energy through chemical reactions, is a crucial factor in determining a given creature's lifestyle and capabilities. Animals have taken various strategies to manage their energy levels and body temperatures beyond just the overly simplistic hot-blooded or cold-blooded paradigm. Endotherms control their activity levels and temperature through interior processes, not relying on outside energy to do so like ectotherms. Poikilotherms allow their body temperature to vary, but that doesn't necessarily mean they're locked into either endothermy or ectothermy. Homeotherms need to keep their body temperature consistent. Humans, for example, are endothermic homeotherms. We keep our body temperature stable through internal processes. Modern crocodiles are ectothermic poikilotherms. They use outside sources to change their body temperatures, but can survive across a much wider range of interior temperature than humans can. Ancestral pseudosuchians like phytosaurs, loricotans, and poposaurids appear to have been endotherms, according to a 2024 study. Osteoderms are famous for their usage as defensive and thermoregulatory structures, and they do excel at fulfilling both functions. Chen et al. 2014 found that alligator osteoderms can resist high compression forces thanks to their weave of collagen and hydroxyapatite. However, osteoderms may also fill a metabolic role. Osteoderm calcium sequestration allows for dealing with CO2 buildup underwater, preventing excessively low pH in the blood. This was covered in a 2003 paper, but I learned it first from Chimerasuchus. If you like Pseudosuchians, you'll love his channel. Metabolism and respiration are fundamentally connected. The rate of oxygen usage, after all, depends upon oxygen processing. 2 studies, in 2010 and 2020 respectively, demonstrated that crocodilians have achieved a form of unidirectional airflow without the use of air sacs, meaning that they are always running fresh oxygen through their lungs even when exhaling. This ability then appears to be plesiomorphic or ancestral to Archosauria as a whole, so the erect stance, long-legged terrestrial Pseudosuchians likely had hyper-efficient breathing as well. That trait, combined with their higher metabolisms, would make them terrifying land predators, capable of sustaining high speeds in pursuit of prey. The semi-aquatic crocodilomorphs have a 4-chambered heart that they can control the chambers of to mix their systemic and pulmonary circulatory systems, which leads to significantly lower oxygen consumption while underwater. Cognition. First, there are myths about crocodilian intelligence on both sides. Unfortunately, the much-spread 2013 report of mugger crocodiles and American alligators balancing sticks on their snouts to catch birds don't appear to have held up after more recent scrutiny. A 2020 study tested the behavior in American alligators and found stick balancing more frequently in populations without bird nests nearby. The behavior appeared to be coincidental. However, the idea that these big reptiles are dumb, whatever that means, isn't based in reality either. Modern crocodilians are known to have high immediate spatial awareness, as demonstrated by various maze trials run in the 1960s. They're also incredible at navigation, able to go on journeys of hundreds of kilometers for months and return to their home sites. They'll even remember specific fishing locations that depend on seasonality, visiting certain times of year and traveling long distances to do so. Crocodiles are also now understood to engage in play behaviors, including surfing, sliding into water repeatedly without apparent purpose, biting streams of water from pipes, pushing floating balls and blowing bubbles at them, and even collecting flowers. They'll engage in social play by mock fighting and riding on one another's backs, especially when young. There is also the famous case of Pocho the American crocodile, who was rescued by a Costa Rican fisherman. Pocho lived with the fisherman for 2 decades, and would not only come when his name was called, but would play with Shedden. engaging in mock attacks and closing his snout before closing in. Cooperative hunting is another complex behavior repeatedly observed in crocodilians, as detailed by crocodilian specialist Vladimir Denay in 2014, that may take the form of taking turns to chase fish towards other crocodiles in the group, or using threat displays to chase pigs towards their lurking compatriots. The most famous example of crocodilian intelligence may be the impressive parental care they provide. A 2019 overview of 24 crocodilian species found that nest attendance and defense were nearly ubiquitous and thus exhibited phylogenetic conservatism, indicating that the behaviors are ancestral to the group. Mothers will keep close watch over their nests and defend them fiercely, often extending that defense to hatchlings and listening to their calls for help. The young appear to display some level of prenatal learning. A 2000 study showed that when you treat crocodile eggs with strawberry flavoring, the hatchlings will demonstrate a preference for strawberry-flavored meat. Crocodilians are also famous for their resistance to disease. Crocodile 2024 performed a proteomic study, or protein analysis, on a Siamese crocodile that they'd inoculated with the bacterium Eremonas hydrophila. They found that the crocodile's response with both antimicrobial proteins and antimicrobial peptides, or short amino acid chains, was astonishingly fast and effective, thanks to their boosted rate of immune cell production. This innate immune system allows crocodiles to freely immerse themselves in filthy water even with open wounds or missing limbs and suffer little to no ill effects. Imagine a human getting his arm ripped off, jumping into a septic tank, and then being totally fine. Crocodilians are also highly resistant to cancer. A 2020 blood analysis found over 100 potential anti-cancer peptides within the blood of a saltwater crocodile. A 2017 study established that as a broad group, crocodilians have high tolerance for heavy metal contaminants and high radiation levels, and specifically found that mugger crocodile cells eliminated over 70% of the human cancer cells they were exposed to, even across multiple different types of cancer. If that weren't enough, the bile of Siamese crocodiles, in addition to their leukocytes, kills human cancer cells. An important factor to recognize is that these anti-cancer properties are believed to have evolved due to the polluted environments that semi-aquatic crocodilians frequent, and so may have not applied to their terrestrial relatives like Sebecids or loricotans. Given how tuned their immune system is, however, it's no surprise that crocodilians can live to be over 100 years old in optimal conditions. Not the decrepit, put me in the retirement home kind of old either, more like bodybuilders that maintain muscle mass even after having great grandkids. The oldest living crocodile, Henry, is well over 120 years old, although a significant portion of that life was in captivity. A 2021 study argued that part of why crocodiles experience negligible senescence, or aging very slowly physically, is due to their incredibly efficient microbiome. The bacteria in their gut help them digest efficiently and avoid internal issues that would limit their lifespans. Wild crocs live shorter lives than in captivity, of course, but will still push 40 to 60 years regularly. One mechanism for long life, shown in Chinese alligators, is simply by lacking the enzyme telomerase reverse transcriptase, which shortens the telomeres responsible for physical aging. Translation: these animals stay in their physical prime for the vast majority of their lifespans. Essentially, they're the Saiyans of the animal kingdom. It's no surprise that as apex predators, large crocodilians have numerous adaptations for hunting. Their muscle density and explosive power are remarkable, allowing them to launch themselves from the water and overpower mammalian megafauna in moments. Saltwater crocodiles can exert posterior bite forces of up to 16,000 newtons, enough to crush muscle and crack bone. But even adults of these giant forms are happy to take smaller prey as well, allowing them to thrive on a mixed diet of fish, amphibians, turtles, small mammals, and birds. They often focus on eating insects and small fish when young. You can fairly effectively predict a crocodilian's diet by looking at its skull shape and teeth. A 2012 study detailed that trend, like with gharials. Their long, thin snouts with needle-like teeth are perfect for snatching up fish. Broad-snouted caimans and Chinese alligators are better adapted for durophagy, eating shelled animals with the help of their specialized round crushing teeth. The death roll also deserves a mention as an adaptation that's made the semi-aquatic apex predator niche one dominated by these powerful archosaurs. Nearly every living crocodilian species performs this maneuver, which consists of grabbing their prey tightly and spinning, drowning the captured animal and helping to remove large chunks of meat. Terrible way to go, really, but a fantastically useful behavior. A huge part of modern Pseudosuchian success is the fact that they resource camp something every animal needs: water. As highlighted in the recent Most Dangerous Animal of Each Time Period video, semi-aquatic Pseudosuchians are consistently a threat across the last 230 million years of Earth's history. At some point, you're going to need to drink, and large prey animals will need to drink a lot, especially when traveling in herds. Phytosaurs were some of the first Pseudosuchians to take advantage of this, although to be fair, giant carnivorous amphibians did the crocodile thing even before crocodiles existed. That body plan, combined with sitting and waiting until your prey comes to you, they're a brilliant combination, and one that allows you to weather large extinctions far more easily than most other large animals. But remember, Terrestrial Pseudosuchians were incredibly widespread and successful for 200 million years too. From loricotans to Sebecids to Edosaurs, they demonstrated that there's one thing in nature you should never do: bet against a crocodile. Studies by the Vividen Corporation show that if you subscribe and comment, you're 12% more likely to spontaneously develop the ability to summon a Baryonysuchus to be your best friend. Sounds like a good deal to me. And if you join the channel, those odds jump to 34%. Big shout out to Chimerasuchus as well, whose channel inspired this video in the first place and was partially responsible for my love of ancient crocodile relatives. I'm the Vividen, and I'll see you the next time I do a deep dive into why a given animal clade is absolutely amazing.